Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm here with Lauren. Lauren
Morning.
is a friend here in Chicago, is an amazing advocate. She does a lot of mutual aid work. She does a lot of, her content is great. She's not much of a, she doesn't do tons of content. Do you want to talk about your new
Y-
project?
Yes, I've kind of stepped back on creating a lot of content because I'm working on starting a nonprofit organization called The Good Work, and we are going to focus on community-led initiatives, grassroots initiatives like mutual aid, violence prevention programs, and we're going to focus on the community and connect those with national civil engagement movements and the focus is always going to be evolving because we want to see what the needs are at the community level and then figure out how we can meet those needs. So it's always going to be a little bit different.
It's been
Yeah.
so wonderful to see like your evolution in the last few months. I know like for a long time you're like, I don't want to be a content creator. Like I want to actually do. I actually want to like not just tell people what to do, but I
Right.
actually want to do. Someone said, "Good
Exactly.
morning, lady. Sounds like you're doing great work, Lauren." Lauren is doing great work. So we are here to talk about some hot button topics. Graham Platner, Taylor Swift, and also Nolan Wells, which is a really heartbreaking story. So when it comes to Graham Platner, when it comes to, the through line here is white supremacy with all of it. And a lot of us have blind spots and we want to talk about them openly. I want to talk about my own because I think like by the time the New York Times piece came out with Graham Platner, I'll just like jump right into it. I think that like on the left, there was never a strong consensus around Graham Platner either. So it is like
Hmm.
one of those things where there are like a lot of strong leftists who were just like, no, he's a Nazi. Like he's a Nazi. But then there were a lot of people who I also trusted who were and I met him and I like talked to we like had a Q&A with him and I felt like his answers made sense and I want to believe people are redeemable. And also because I've seen how much like corporate Dems and the whole military industrial complex will attack candidates like him. It makes it harder for me to believe anything, but that is the same distrust in institutions that MAGA used to create what MAGA is today, where like
Mm.
nothing you can throw at them about their candidate will stick because you've decided no. Like and I like missed my own blind spots there because, just distrust institutions to the point where it's like, why? For a white man who signed up to go kill people multiple times, who like at the very least does not deserve the benefit of the
No,
doubt just for the baseline of being a white man, honestly, a white man who signed up to kill people, and somebody who clearly at first it seemed like he owned it, which is why I was like, let's like see how this plays out. But then by the time first the sexting conversations with another woman outside of his marriage were leaked, and I'm like, okay, people cheat on their wives. That's that is what it doesn't make disqualifies him from being, And then the New York Times piece came out, and the person who like had the most to say about him was somebody who worked at the Heritage Foundation. So it's another thing where I was like, at that point, I was like, I'm not going to defend him in public. But I remember saying to you because you're like, oh, this looks really bad, and I was like, "Ugh, it's just an
yeah,
opera piece, and I kind of just like dismissed it. When you're my friend, and I'm somebody who wants to be aware of my blind spots, and I believe we do always transform in relationships, and I should have been like, you know what? I don't know why my knee jerk reaction is to overlook this. Maybe I should just like process this out loud with my friend who isn't going to judge me for talking through my concerns and who I can also hear what she has to say as an advocate for sexual assault survivors. Like I missed that opportunity and that makes me sad and I apologize for that. Um,
friend.
no, it
But
does make me
also,
sad.
I mean, I love that we're having this discourse publicly too, because we have not had this conversation yet. I also feel like for me, I started to something that sexual assault survivors will recognize in themselves probably is we often like second guess. Wait, maybe this thing that I'm picking up on is just my
Yeah.
own trigger. Maybe that's something that
But
I
I
need
was
to work.
of that experience for you or being like, "Oh, maybe you won't push back more with like
Mhm,
to advocate when I know that you're a survivor too and you're used to, second guessing yourself. Like I should have double
mhm,
checked. I should have like opened up the conversation more. Like that was something that I did wrong and I like
mhm,
could have learned a little sooner and I could have been outspoken about this a little sooner and like that is where I missed the mark totally. And so I think like one thing that I'm always big on is too many people who make content only want to speak once they feel they
mhm,
can be an authority on a topic and they're unsure. But I feel like like I said, we really only transform through relationships, and we're not going to be able to change this whole system unless we change how we relate to each other, which is like we have to be open and vulnerable and talk to each other and be honest when we don't quite know where we stand on something, and like trust our friends to help us process and like see our blind spots.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's something that's important to me to like learn out loud, as I've said
Mhm.
before, because there's just not enough of that, especially on the left, where there's so many different shades of left, and we don't know how to talk to each other about things that
Yeah.
we're unsure about, you know?
Absolutely. One of the things, my big takeaways from that interaction, and like it was, none of it was negative. It was, I was like, whoa, hey, my spidey senses are going off with this. And then you and a couple other friends were like, no, 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 it's just Oppo. Like, it's fine. And I think where I'm sitting with it now is Oppo isn't necessarily incorrect. Like, it's people who they've gone digging and they've found something and they're running with it. Granted, the the first woman, I think the thing that made me back off wasn't necessarily you. It was more that she was coming from the Heritage Foundation, and I have a huge distrust of anybody who is going to be falling into MAGA lines. So that's when I was like, okay, maybe this is like, maybe he's unsavory. And
And it's up
but
to Maine. I think at one point I was like, at
yeah.
least I don't have to have an opinion. If Mainers still want him, they can have him. I'm glad I don't have to weigh in, I think is like where I eventually like arrive.
Yes. Sadia said something really interesting yesterday on Threads, or I think it was yesterday on Threads, that there's something, as survivors of abuse, you kind of like can read that energy on people a little bit more quickly, maybe. And I think it's part of a hypervigilance response. And so there was something about him that I didn't feel right about, but I didn't get that feeling with Eric Swalwell. So, like, then it brings me into this, like, can I really trust that feeling that I have? Can I really trust that hypervigilance? But there is something there, I think, that it kind of reminds me of the girl with the dragon tattoo, the
Mhm.
part where he knows, he knows that he is face to face with the murderer. He knows that he is in the murderer's house. He knows that that murderer is trying to bring him downstairs so that he can murder him, and he does it anyway, and he goes because he doesn't want to be impolite, and then almost dies because of it. I keep thinking of that situation right now, just generally, like, how do we trust our own instincts, and then follow through on it instead of
Yeah.
worrying about being polite,
I
especially
think
white people.
Yeah, and I think like the base like coming back to whiteness and how whiteness has to do with a lot of this is like white men have the burden of like they need to work way harder to earn trust. Like the baseline should
Yes.
be not the benefit of the doubt. And he wasn't working like he kind of stuck to, his Nazi tattoo, which I thought the story made sense. He was in Croatia, he was drunk, he was early 20s. He picked something on a wall. At the time, Croatia was very like going through some sort of Nazi thing. Like there were not a lot of Nazis there. And I'm like, and he didn't know the thing when they just got the tattoo, whatever. And I believed that. But also, again, and I was talking to my friend Greg Stoker about this, who is a vet, but he was just saying yesterday, he went to therapy twice a week for 8 years before he really started talking publicly, and now he's running for office. But I was telling him like, "Ugh, we're seeing a lot of vets right now who are trying to grapple with guilt, and I think seeing America not be what they signed up for and trying to atone for that publicly, which I think is fine. But then when you're running to office, there's almost like a sense of ego where it's like, okay, because I caused this much harm, I am the one who also has to fix it in office before actually like, no, you actually need to go to therapy and deal with your trauma and deal with like the things that make you guilty and like unlearn your whiteness. Like you shouldn't automatically think that you should have a seat at the table. Like I
Mhm.
think there's like this disconnect where I'm like, we really need to make white men earn their seat at the table way harder because the caucasity, as I've been saying, the fucking caucasity of somebody with as many skeletons as him to think he could outrun them. Only a white man, because a black woman could
Could
never run with
never.
even like Abdul Sayed is squeaky fucking clean. He has to be. Like there is no way he could run for office if he had even like 1% of what Graham Platner. I think like and going back to like Oppos, like Oppos come from things that are true. It's just how they spin it. The worst that they've
Yeah.
had with Abdul is like he never even practiced medicine, but he literally went to Oxford and has a PhD and an MD and decided to go into public health when he probably could have been making billions of dollars as like a crazy ass surgeon because he's so smart. Like they're like he didn't even like that is they're taking the truth and they're trying to spin it. And the same thing with Graham Platner. They were taking true stories. There's no spin on him going into a woman's house after she said, "Do not come over." There's no spin on that. There's no spin on like the patterns of behavior. It's like they are truths. And I think people don't understand that. They're like, this is an APAC smear. Sure, maybe APAC is digging and they're like, let's get everything we can on the guy. Maybe APAC doesn't care when other people are, but that doesn't change the truth about him. And like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, sorry, we cannot like when I say I don't want to be stuck between choosing the lesser of two evils. I want to demand no evil. That applies even on the left, even on somebody who is pro Palestine or not going to send, like our barrier, like it shouldn't just be single issue. It should be I want no evil, and that's it.
Mhm.
Like I'm done settling.
One of the things that I was thinking about Graham Platner this morning is that him even running for this nomination is rapey because it's
Mhm.
not considering the well-being of the party, of his constituents or would-be constituents. He's not considering the well-being of the state of Maine and the
I mean,
nation
it's
because he
all,
feels entitled. It's
exactly.
all about his ego, and that's
Hmm.
that's such a rapey thing. It's so to just not give a
To
shit
think I
about.
deserve this no matter what without giving
Mhm,
people, I think like yesterday before like we heard that things were coming out and I know that more things are likely to come out. But the things that I was hearing that are likely to come out, I was just like, I don't understand why on day one, when the first Nazi tattoo came out, whatever, he should have said, hey, I'm a piece of shit. These are all of the things that are going to come out about me. This is how I have started to make amends. If you don't trust me, like, do not vote for me. I want to work to prove to you, but at least want all of this out there so it's not a distraction and so you can make it like
mhm,
at the very least, if you have fucked up, which all of us have, own it from the beginning and then let people make an informed choice. That takes so like informed consent was removed, which is rapey.
mm,
And Mainers like feel extremely betrayed by him because they have had his back through storm after storm after storm. And now they're
mhm,
like, this is too much. Drop
yeah.
out. Like, we are betrayed by you. We have been like dealing with the abuse from, like following you, supporting you. And now look like
Well,
it is rapey.
and it's gaslighting to act as though. So here's okay, he knew that even if in his narrative, the way that he's rewritten what happened with his ex, if he has explained that away to himself, he knows that her experience was that it was not consensual because she told him it was not consensual. Don't ever talk to me again. And so he knew at least there is one person who feels that this is what happened. And I am even just like I'm not saying that this is what her
Mhm,
experience was and not the reality. Like that's not what I'm saying at all. I believe her. Every single thing about her account, it
mhm.
resonated and I believe every word of it. But even if he is like, actually, that wasn't my experience. And even if that's the way that he's explained this to himself, he knows that that was her experience. So he knew that there was a risk. He knew that this was likely to come out or be pulled up by somebody. So even just that understanding, even if he doesn't think that he's a rapist, he knows that there is somebody out there who does. And then to gaslight everyone when the first one came out and not get ahead of it, not tell his team.
I
I
mean, he kept
can't.
saying that's it, like nothing more is coming out.
No.
And even, I'm like, at that point publicly, I was like, I'm not going to say anything anymore because it's just not worth it to me. Like, we have a
Mm-mm.
lot of populist candidates and I don't want to lose my credibility over a white man, but I still like that wasn't enough for me to
No.
just not say anything. Like, I should have started saying, hey, I don't know how I feel about this, but we do need to not just make excuses for it. Like, just something, just giving the process out loud and being open. I think
Yeah.
online it is hard to be open because you do get, hit with so many opinions but at the end of the day, like I was looking at, people I trust, like Rokana had backed him and he was like,
Yeah.
okay, he's like, as long as there's, but then he was like the first to rescind his endorsement. And I'm like, before O'Connor rescinded, like I was already like, no, this guy's fucking done. But
How many people have pulled their endorsements? Is it
oh, so
everybody at
many.
this point? Like, I know
Elizabeth
I keep
Warren has, the main Democratic caucus has said he
yeah.
needs to step down. A lot of people are demanding he step down, including like
I
in his
wonder
own volunteer Discord server. All of the volunteers are like, you need to step down. You've
yeah.
betrayed us. And so it's like he fooled a lot of people. And I think like a lot of people are like, well, wasn't the Nazi tattoo enough? That is fair. And also, like,
Mhm,
I really believed his story. And I think, like, and then you look at people like Rokana and Elizabeth Warren, who like other people, I'm like, well, they must have
mhm.
believed his story too. But then there were a lot of people who I do trust as well who were just never felt good about it. Like Chris Valenti,
Yeah.
we were just in New York with him, and he's like, "No, that guy's a fucking Nazi. Like I know a Nazi when I
Mhm,
see a Nazi. He's a Nazi." And I was like,
mhm.
"No, because I feel like maybe if you talk to him, and I'm like, that is the same parasocial thing we see with Taylor Swift, where it's like because
Yes.
of little interactions, we think we know somebody, and so it's like that's where I have been thinking too, is like my same critiques I have of the Swifties. Like that
Mhm.
was me, like having a blind spot and giving someone room where like there was no need to defend. Like
Yeah.
he needs to prove to people he's worth voting for. There is like no need to defend him. But no, it has been one of those things where it isn't clear cut. It's not like the entire left is behind him no matter what. Like, it has not been the
Yeah.
case, and so that's where I've been like, "I don't know." Like, I really don't know, but I also, like I said, Oppo pieces are real. Like, people keep
Mhm.
thinking that it means it's, like, some fake planted piece. You don't realize
Right.
how much vetting it takes for a publication like Politico to put something out in that detail
Right.
without a lot of corroboration. We've seen it on the back end how hard it is to get a story like that to break. Even
Absolutely.
if there's APAC money behind it, even if Politico does have it is owned by the same people who are like, they'll be fired if they don't paint Israel in a positive light or whatever. That doesn't like that can be true. And also, he still did those fucking things.
Right, absolutely. Well, and I think the criticism that we're hearing a lot from the right is, well, I mean, there are going to be Democrats in the Epstein files. Like, what are
Arrest them
you
all.
like? Good, go. Like, let's release every single name, even if that means we are completely cleaning house within Congress. Good. It needs to be cleaned. It is rotting.
Mhm,
If this is where we are, if that and if you think about how many centuries
mhm,
of the caucasity of white men who are raping women
mhm,
and taking whatever power they want, it is it's just I think that that is the root of how this country was built. I mean, I don't think I
mhm,
know. Like this is what this country was built on. And so of course it would make sense that now operating how many years later, 250 years later, it is
mhm,
still operating in the same way where we're just being governed by entitled rapists. Like
mhm.
unfortunately, I think that's probably pretty true, Democrats
Well, it
and
is true.
Republicans.
It is
Mhm.
true, and I've said before, like, people try to paint the Epstein files as, like, this, occult kind of thing, where it's like, oh, it's, like, almost like the QAnon, Blueanon,
Mhm.
like, this occult thing where, the spirits whatever, they might do weird occult things, I don't know, but the truth of the matter is, like you said, imperialism has always been based on like the
Mhm.
men come in and rape the women to like show their dominance. They steal the
Yeah.
land, they enslave the people. They have never stopped. They have just continued to change it so that they can isolate themselves, insulate themselves more, and we see less of it. We're just seeing
Yeah.
the newest scenario, like it has never stopped. It's not some like weird thing that came out of nowhere. It's a poison that is rooted in imperialism and white supremacy that we need to like address no matter how uncomfortable it is, because that is ultimately
Yes.
what we're facing with everything we're seeing right now.
Well, and okay, so pivoting a little bit over to Taylor Swift, you mentioned. So just to table set here. I don't know that yes, I would say that at one point I was a Swiftie, but I wasn't like a rabid Swiftie. I wasn't one of the people that was constantly doing the puzzles and trying to like I would engage in conversation and I would have theories, but I wasn't out there chasing the things to unlock the whatever the way
The Easter egg con yeah.
yeah, exactly. I thought it was interesting and fun to kind of but I didn't really become a fan of hers until COVID when she released 2 albums, Folklore and Evermore. And she was working with Jack Antonoff on them, and they're much more stripped down, less poppy. And that was kind of how I got pulled in. And then now we've gone into this different direction. I went to the Eras tour. I could like reference so many of her lyrics for so many different situations. I cried at the Eras tour when she played a song about her grandmother that
Mhm.
hit close to home. So I say every bit of criticism that I'm about to say is coming from a place of I really appreciated this musician in a lot of ways.
I'll say I liked her too when, there's the album she had, White Horse was on that one. Which one is that? I'm not a princess, this ain't a fairy tale. Ugh, that's such a
Well, yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah.
but it was like
That was
my
in her early
teenage
ones.
self loved it, and
Yeah.
also she and I are Eskimo sisters, and I remember being pretty proud of that for a minute.
I need details about that. That's amazing.
Taylor Swift, she had him first, so anyways, I stopped liking her a while ago, but also I did really like her. Like, it's not like I came in from the beginning hating this white woman. Like,
Yeah.
it has been really wild to watch because you see people who otherwise would usually understand the critiques
Yeah.
are not. But anyways, go into your experience and what you were
Yeah.
saying.
So I guess my feeling is it's complicated, right? But I think that looking at
But we should review what for those who don't know. Let's review
oh,
like the main critiques that are coming out.
are there people who don't know?
I mean, there might be.
True. I mean, okay, so as far as the critiques that are happening, to me, I critiqued her the morning of what was her wedding. I at the time didn't believe it. I didn't think that she was actually going to be getting married at Madison Square Garden because that's
No.
a wild thing to do as a
Tacky
former
as
wedding
hell.
planner. So fucking tacky. And I understand it from the standpoint of security. I understand it that
Should
like
get a whole private island if she wanted to. Like,
correct.
it's the whole,
And
"I need privacy, but this is where I'm gonna have my wedding" is crazy.
that. And I felt like it was tacky in the context of I know how much money that it would take to transform Madison Square Garden into the magical type of space that I could only begin to think that she would want to create. And spending that amount of money and shutting down a significant portion of New York on a holiday weekend given the backdrop of everything that's happening in our country and this massive wealth disparity that we have, where people are not able to afford diapers and people are dying on a regular basis in just horrific ways, to have that kind of garish display, that in and of itself felt tacky to me. But now that more is coming out, so when I posted this, I did not think that she was actually going to be getting married that day. I thought it was like all kind of a ruse for maybe she was starting a record label or maybe it was a distraction and she was getting
I
married
thought
in like a
that
tiny
they were gonna
private.
fans, like, watch a live stream party from Madison Square Garden or something
Yeah.
like that, yeah.
So that morning, I realized that the White House posted something blatantly ripping her intellectual property and that it had been sitting up for 12 hours. And following her work and knowing how litigious she is
To her own
and
friends
to her
friends.
own friends, to her fans who have like teeny little Etsy shops and they're using like you can take your face and put your face on the Taylor Swift Eras tour. Like she's sending cease and desist letters faster than those Etsy shops are even able to start pushing sales. And so somebody just said, I'm surprised she didn't drop 10 versions of the wedding.
Blue is a friend. Blue, I heard she's also gonna have an LA version of the wedding. I have to look into that, but
The
it's
variants.
true.
We've got the
Yeah,
variant.
we've got that Taylor's version wedding 5 times, 10 times.
My God. But so I jumped online and I haven't been making a ton of content because I've been working on building a nonprofit organization and actually doing the work. So I grabbed my coffee and was like, "Are you fucking kidding me? What is this? Why have you not told the White House? Why have you not sent a cease and desist? Why have you not had your team issue some sort of, hey, knock it off. I don't want you using my intellectual property in conjunction with your administration and the harm that you're causing people who I claim to advocate for." Like, she did an entire ass documentary, Miss Americana, that positioned her as a young rising star and a white woman who wanted to use her voice for good and for politics. And she just couldn't live with herself if she didn't speak out against Marsha Blackburn. And she just absolutely needed to say something directly to Donald Trump, and no matter what he said in response to her. So she positioned herself as somebody who talks about politics and somebody who advocates for marginalized communities, specifically the LGBTQ community. And so to create this public persona around those things and then allow the Trump administration to use your intellectual property. I believe this was the third time, maybe the fourth time that the administration used her IP. And she has not publicly issued any kind of statement or a cease and desist. And so when I saw it and that it had been up for 12 hours, and at this point, it has been up now since Thursday night of this past week, and now it's Tuesday morning, it's still up. There has been no statement issued. And it just, that was something for me where I was like, I didn't like her last album. I have felt really betrayed by the way that she has not used her voice at all in the last year and a half, really almost 2 years since she endorsed Kamala. The night, it was in September, it was the night of the debate that she endorsed her, and hasn't said anything about politics or Trump since then, even though he's caused so much harm. And so I was like, okay, publicly, I'm just going to yap at the camera for a minute and show people how he's using her intellectual property. And it ended up going viral. And the amount of hate, and like, not even hate I can take. It's like abusive, venomous, vitriolic anger that is flooding my DMs and my comments has only ever been matched when I got doxxed by MAGA and when I piss off incels when I talk about how rapey men are. Like, and now I'm getting that same level of
We're a
anger and
billionaire. Like, we have
yes.
to over a white billionaire. Like, the woman part of it is honestly, like, this is the other part that pisses me off, which is we can get into in a minute, but, like, she is still a white billionaire at the end of the day. Why is it more important to protect a billionaire than to listen or consider the point of view of somebody who is way closer to you in life experience than it is to like, it makes no sense to me. It's crazy.
I had a friend of mine who jumped into my comment section on that video and said that my video seemed like a thirsty reach for clicks and engagement.
That's insane, as if you've ever cared about clicks and engagement.
Like, could give two fucks about clicks and engagement. And then, but that's the biggest thing that I'm getting. People are like, "Oh, you're just using this to clout chase on her wedding." Like, no, not at all. And if just because, but if I were to
And
say
you've
something,
never been a clout chaser. I will like knowing
thank
you, like
you.
that is anybody who knows you knows that you are not a clout chaser. So if someone would rather default to that to then sit with how uncomfortable it is to face and
That's
why is it uncomfortable? And that's been my thing. And that's where I came back to myself where it's like, why is it uncomfortable for me to just call Graham Platner out? What
mhm.
like we have to be willing to ask ourselves, why is this my knee-jerk reaction when the people who I've chosen to have in community with me are telling me something that I should trust more than I trust a fucking stranger who doesn't know or give a shit about me.
Right. Well, I think so. One of the things that I look at my content and the things that I say, even in real life with friends and family, we hold up mirrors for each other, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes when you look at the mirror and you don't like the reflection, you don't like what you see in response, some people will break the mirror instead of sitting with the discomfort of maybe I need to fix my lip liner because I like drew all over my face and like it's funky now. And I'm looking at this mirror that's showing me how I messed up my makeup and how
Mhm.
it looks weird now. So instead of sitting with that discomfort and going through the work of finding your makeup remover and moving, like getting rid of your, maybe you have to wash your face and start over.
You just
Instead
move
of
through the world looking messy.
and then you break the mirror and you're like, fuck you, mirror. Like that's what I feel. Sorry, I am caffeinated and I am
No, it's okay.
dropping
30
bombs like a
milligrams of Adderall. I didn't have caffeine, but protein shake
mhm.
and Adderall, I feel you, feel the same. No, and also, like, one thing I said to you was, like, people are used to you speaking to an audience that isn't them. You're
Mm.
usually trying to reach people who are not engaged. So then to hear you say something to them is triggering. That's the, tornado tornado test. It's loud. I live right next to it.
It was also kind of perfect given what what you were
Woo!
saying. It was like adding emphasis.
I'll mute. You can just talk.
Okay. But no, I think you're absolutely right because I think that's such a good point I hadn't considered. People are used to watching me talk about things that they already agree with in a lot of ways. And the people I'm trying to reach in many cases might not say anything publicly to me. They usually what I'm doing with my content is I think about certain people in my life, like people I know in real life, and I craft a message speaking directly to them. And that's how I started making content was I didn't necessarily want to be like I didn't have a relationship to pull somebody in and say like, "Hey, can we talk about like why this viewpoint is harmful and like let me give you a different perspective." I didn't have that kind of relationship with certain people that I know in real life, but I wanted to have those conversations. So I started just doing it publicly in a way where I know that they could see it. And like then I share it to my stories and you can see who's watching your stories. So I knew that I was reaching those specific people that I was trying to talk to. And but they never say anything back. But in some of those cases, I've had some of them come back afterwards and say, like, hey, I just have really been thinking and maybe da 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 da. And actually, could I donate to this thing that you're doing? And so it's impactful, but we might not ever have direct discourse about that topic. And
Mhm,
I don't know which of the videos it was that started
mhm,
to kind of shift their thinking. But in this case,
mhm,
oh, they let me know. They
mhm.
they me have it and it's still happening. The my notifications are popping off right now because I posted some things on threads about Graham Platner and I obviously posted some things about Taylor Swift. And one of the most hilarious things that I got last 2 nights ago was a guy on threads who was like, "You've posted a few things in the last 4 days about Taylor Swift. That's crazy." I was like, I'm a content creator. Like I'm literally just posting my opinion about a very culturally significant moment that is exactly at the wheelhouse of like the intersection in my wheelhouse. So wild. But so somebody here says they're trying to silence us. Like
Literally.
all of them, the rape apologists, the
Mhm,
billionaire apologists, just because Taylor Swift one time said something good, and not one time, she said a few things, but like almost 2 years ago, endorsed Kamala the night of the debate and never said anything else after that, never contributed to her campaign in a visible way.
mhm.
I just because she did that one thing does not mean she gets a free pass for the last year and a half of silence and flaunting extreme amounts of wealth in the process. I find it I find it really off-putting and gross, and that's not somebody that I want to celebrate.
Yeah, and I also think that a lot of people will say like, "Well, it would put Taylor's life in danger to say something." Like people infantilize her so much. And my issue is, do you see that so many people are already in danger and don't even have like 1% of the resources she does? What the fuck
Mm,
do you mean? We are in danger by putting ourselves out there every single day. You have done things that have put you in danger, not for you, but for the betterment
mhm.
of underrepresented community. Is like,
Yeah.
what do you mean she's putting herself in danger? She's a fucking billionaire. Like, if she doesn't do something with it, like, it's not dangerous. It's just her preserving her billionaire wealth, like her preserving her access to power. Like,
So she doesn't have the resources.
like the
Yeah,
fact
you
that she donated to first of all, those are tax write-offs. I have read that a lot of her wedding was a tax write-off because of the way I don't know, it was a business expense. So they're gonna get money
Dropping
back
our
from
pads.
that. But she did not donate to any group that was immigrants, brown people, black people, LGBT,
LGBT
women's rights, abortion. None of them were anything that would piss off MAGA. And I
was
think
the
like
most neutral.
and that is a statement in and of itself. It was a tax write-off. Yeah, sure, people need food, but like that was very clear. She didn't want to do anything that would alienate her MAGA fans. Um,
Absolutely. And I think the other complaint that I've seen is people are like, well, but she donated $26 million. Do you have any concept how much money she would have spent on this wedding? I don't care if people were giving discounts and people
they
were,
raffled Cartier watches.
yeah.
What the fuck? I don't even care
It's
if those were gifted. She could have sold those and then given the money to charity. Like,
right. I mean, it's the idea that a $26 million donation ahead of a wedding is somehow protection and cushion from any kind of criticism about the way that the rest of this has rolled out is exactly the purpose of the donation in the first place. Like it was just a PR move to try to insulate her from criticism because the criticism is warranted. And you're seeing a lot of people like me who have been silent and have just felt kind of icky about her, but haven't said anything about it publicly. You're seeing a lot of us actually say it now out loud, and people who maybe haven't felt icky about it until now are starting to see things in a different light. But that was the whole purpose of the donation in the first place was to try to insulate her from this kind of criticism.
yeah. I mean, otherwise, like, why wouldn't she give to groups that are actually impacted by this administration?
Yeah.
Why would she plan her wedding in Madison Square fucking Garden? Like, people keep
Right.
saying Zendaya got married in July and we still haven't seen a single picture. We found out about it way later. Like, you
Right.
can have private weddings when you have that much money. It's it's really baffling, and I think, like, one thing that is often missed is the concept of white feminism, because a lot of the
Mm,
people that you're seeing with the pushback are white women, and white feminism, if people don't know, it's like, your advocacy only goes as far as what impacts a white woman, but, like, Kimberly Crenshaw came out with the concept of intersectionality, which is, like, we have multiple identities that, like, put us under the power structure, so it's like a white woman only has to deal with gender. But they
mm,
still are protected by, they might not have, class, but they are, like, race. In Taylor's case, her dad was a Merrill Lynch stockbroker who she was the first person signed to a brand new label that he invested in because she wasn't getting signed anywhere else. Like, she had the class privilege, she has the race privilege, she has all of the privileges. She is not a victim, and white feminism is like, when, Susan B. Anthony and the suffragettes marched for voting rights, Black
mm.
women marched with them, and they put them in the back. As soon as white women got the right to vote, the white
Yep.
women abandoned black women, and black women didn't get the right to vote because of Jim Crow laws for another 40 years. It's like the
Yeah.
level of your advocacy stops once you feel that so it's like people are arguing like it's misogynistic to be calling out Taylor Swift and not Travis Kelce. No, it's not, because she is still representative of all of these power structures, and her womanhood is literally the only thing up against her. People say white women are the backbone of the patriarchy, and I think that is very true in her case. You can call out
Mhm.
Donald Trump 2 years ago, you're still not doing any, like, you are still when you are still a billionaire, when you are still having an ICE profiteer at your fucking wedding, when I know a lot of celebrities haven't said anything about Gaza, but, like, at this point, a lot have, and she still hasn't. And I
Mm.
think, like, that's something I've seen in like, some of the people who have been defending her, people will be like, "Yo, like, there are women in Gaza who haven't had a clean tampon in 2.5 years, have been giving birth at checkpoints, and they're like, what does Palestine have to do with anything? It has to do with everything. Like, we can't have this selective advocacy where it's like, we have to protect Taylor Swift just because she's a woman, but nobody else is
Mhm.
deserving, or like the reasons that people don't like or trust her are very valid. And instead of
Yeah.
realizing like the reason you're defending her is because you also don't wanna face those same criticisms yourself. Because I mean, again, like, I think I said, like, it's a circle, the Venn diagram is a circle. The people who, like, ignore a lot of the other things will also ignore
I'm
this
just
Taylor Swift.
I'm scanning the
Even
comments
Drake
in
spoke about
Instagram. The Instagram comments are proving exactly what we are talking about.
Are we getting a lot of
Like,
hate?
yeah, like, it's just
Bring it
it's
on, baby.
it's fine. Well, and I think that what Taylor is representing is for white women, our proximity to white men, like they're the top of the power structure pyramid. And the closer we are in proximity to them, the safer we think we are, but we're not actually safe. Like
Because
if
look
you
at what
look at
these white men do.
yes, and if you look at MAGA women and like the way that they've aligned themselves with that power structure, they are the first ones to be fed to the wolves when
Mhm.
push comes to shove. So there is no safety in aligning yourself with the patriarchy and white supremacy. Ultimately, you will also be thrown under the bus. And I just find if you think about like to what Miss Rachel has done with
Mhm.
her platform, could you imagine? Like, Miss Rachel has accomplished so much and given so much voice and humanity in a way that I think few other people can speak to. If Taylor Swift had done just a teeny tiny fraction of what Miss Rachel has done with her platform, I just like could you imagine the impact? It's staggering to think about. Also, Miss Rachel just started following me, so hi
We
Miss
love Miss
Rachel.
Rachel. Oh my
Can
gosh,
we be
we
friends
love
in real life?
please, seriously. No, that's really true though. Is like I remember the first time Miss Rachel made a post about Gaza and her follow-up post was her sobbing, saying the bullying is so bad, guys. Like, and then she
Mhm.
kind of went offline for a little bit. And everyone was like,
Mhm.
leave our girl. Like, people were like, she's anti Semitic. She's this, she's that.
Yeah.
All she said was, I don't want any children being bombed. Then she came back with a fucking vengeance. Like, she was like,
Mhm.
okay, the bullying was so bad. And that makes me dig my heels in deeper and normalize
Yes.
this thing because I'm not going to let the bully stop me. And like the infantilization of Taylor Swift in comparison, it's like white women have the most power out of all women, especially
Yep.
wealthy white women. They have the most power, and with great power comes great responsibility. But I like, yeah, that's like a really great example of the difference. People have said, like, if Taylor Swift just shared a donation link to Sudan, to Gaza, to West Bank, to Lebanon, to any crisis, Venezuela just had 2 earthquakes. She could have
Mhm.
given a donation link and said, I would like my fans to donate to this cause. They would have, like, she could have done anything, and she
Even if
did
she
it.
didn't want to dip her toes into that, like pick a myriad of other things she
Yeah,
could have. She has said nothing about ICE, but yet invited. My understanding is he is a contractor who provides medical
and
services
we know that
for
medical
ICE facilities.
services are fucking fucked. They're not getting
People are
enough care,
dying. No,
and
I
he's
talked
profiting
to
from it.
I talked to somebody who there was a detainee who had been beaten to the point of not being able to walk. Both of his legs were broken and was denied medical care for days. So and this man is at your wedding and I just how if it walks like a duck, I don't care if that music is something that has been formative and that helped me process trauma and that is attached with so much joy. I don't care because at the end of the day, my emotional experience with music is not more important than somebody's well-being and life and dignity.
Mm,
Those my comfort should not supersede somebody else's life,
mhm.
somebody else's well-being.
Yeah,
So I'm having it. So hi to the people on Instagram who are
Matt.
popping off.
Keep popping off, baby. It's like,
Yeah,
go
do
for
it.
it. Like, the defenses people have about that too are like, "Okay, but it was Travis's best friend's dad
Mhm.
or this or that." My friend Melissa, who the political mommy, made a
Mhm.
post yesterday in response to that saying she didn't even let her own sister-in-law come to her wedding because her sister-in-law was dating a guy who was
Mm.
like posting really racist things, had a Confederate flag as a background. And so she's
Wow.
like, I will like my wedding is for the people I trust the most in the world that I am
Yep.
building.
Yep.
And I do not trust anybody who feels though that way about any human being. No, my sister-in-law is not coming to my wedding. Like you can
Mm.
do those things if you are not carrying water for the patriarchy. then you
Yes.
can, and she is one of the most, she's the most powerful white woman in America right now. In the world, probably. Like,
Mm,
but her power is contingent on that proximity, then what power does she actually have? Like, she needs to, and that's what I like, the infantilization of her is just crazy to me.
yeah.
She's not a baby, she's almost 40 years old. Like,
Our society has conditioned white women to just make everybody else around them comfortable. And if you do anything that disrupts that comfort or holds up a mirror that makes people have to reevaluate themselves, that is such a violation of the Stepford wife agreement. So I think for her with the resources she has to not only I think it's communicating a message to
mhm,
the way that we are supposed to be behaving. Don't talk about it. It makes people uncomfortable. Don't acknowledge it. It's just we're just gonna throw our big party. Look over here. Look at
mhm.
this big flashy party instead. And let's talk about the
Very
fashion.
let them
And
eat cake.
very,
Yeah.
very.
Yeah, and it's all about maintaining the status quo ultimately, and,
Mhm,
like, growing is gonna require, a lot of growing pains, and,
mhm,
like, that's gonna have to happen from white people the most because people of color have already been going through the pain of this administration for generations. I think, like, I think curious how you feel like you have evolved since getting in, like, dealing with
mhm.
uncomfortable things since you've started getting into politics and advocacy, like, what that experience has been like for you as a white woman and, like, starting to speak
Life
up for
changing. It's life changing. I mean, I can remember I still have a visceral reaction when I think about it. In 2016, I remember watching Philando Castile be killed and then almost immediately going to a golf outing
Mhm.
fundraiser and where I wore teal because that was the branding of the fundraiser, and we all had to wear a little bit of teal, and then we went on this golf outing, and it felt like such a chasm, such a disconnect between what is actually happening and then I'm out here like with a golf club, and it just I that was the turning point for me. And then I said something which I'm still very hesitant to talk about because the fallout from it was so intense. But I said something at a gathering in Michigan with a group of friends I was sharing a house with, and I realized one night when we were all sitting around drinking that some of them were not offended by Trump and in fact were planning on voting for him and hadn't been freaked out by the RNC and his speech and found it actually offensive that I wanted to watch the DNC. And that's when I realized that like I was existing in this world that I needed to start extracting myself from. And it's been a long process and it once you can't unring that bell. You can't unsee it when you see it. And you can try to bring people along with you. You can try to help people grow so that you can grow together and you can do good work together and that you can start to help people and flip this whole thing upside down so that it isn't causing so much harm. You can do that, but then there's a certain point. Now it's 2026, it's been 10 years. And so there are certain things where it's like, okay, that relationship can't come with me. I need to keep moving forward like that career doesn't get to come with me anymore. Like I was an event planner. I did nonprofit events and weddings. I did a lot of weddings to facilitate my nonprofit work. And I couldn't if somebody came to me and asked me to plan their wedding right now, I wouldn't be able to do it. Like physically, I think I it would the amount of anxiety just from existing in something that isn't aligned, it would be too great. So it's not easy. So I understand why people don't do it. I understand why people don't want to go down this road because it's difficult. It's hard. Like it's a situation where you start to rethink everything in your life and you re-examine it. So I understand why people get uncomfortable and why they get angry at people like me who are making them think about things differently.
Mhm.
That was
And
a
I
lot. I just said a
Mm.
lot. I'm sorry.
No, 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 that was great, and I think with that too is, like, the growing never stops, and I think that's where
Mhm.
some of us, even myself,
Yeah.
like I said, my own blind spots. I think a lot of people, like, especially the further left you go, there's, like, I'm pretty far left, so there are a lot of liberals, like, their
Mhm.
takes will mean nothing to me, And that also creates a blind spot. Then
Mhm.
I'm removing my own ability to fully assess the situation. Like, we all have to constantly be willing to face uncomfortable truths because that is how we're going to move. I mean, there is just such a moral communication vacuum happening right now. And because of that, like, our leader is just not telling the truth about what is going on. We are so, like, used to being gaslit. We're so used to being like, "Nope, there's not a genocide happening before your eyes and funded by your tax
Mhm.
dollars. No, Renee Good and Alex Preddy were terrorists." Like, we're just
Mhm.
so many versions of, like, our leaders lying that I feel like those of us who can see have a duty to tell the truth, to fill that void, because that void is something that, like, the opposition uses to seed real anti-Semitism seeping into the left.
Yes.
Like, we're starting to see actually, like, the Nick Fuentes types getting into
Yeah.
the, like, that is terrifying because there is, like, a huge vacuum, because a lot of people have been so propagandized and because we don't have leaders or media or any functioning institution filling that void. So it's like, if we see it, we have a responsibility to be uncomfortable and fill that void. Oh.
Absolutely. I think I think that you bring up a lot of really good points in just the way that it's like critical thinking has we've gotten so used to being told that this is the narrative, this is what's going on, and we are losing the ability to actually look at things critically. And something with the Taylor piece of it, the spectacle of it, like that was not a wedding, that was a spectacle. It was anything as a wedding planner, what I used to tell my clients, they would be like, "Do I really need that?" And I'd be like, "Well, technically, you don't need any of this. Like a wedding is your marriage license and an officiant and witnesses, and anything else is extra. So whatever you want this to look like, it's just a managing of your expectations. But the spectacle of what happened in New York, and also like there is just this extra pressure I find for if you look at the way that fashion trends are going and body trends, there is more of an emphasis on thinness and looking a certain way, playing a part, dressing. Because if we are so focused on starving ourselves, on exercising in a way that isn't for strength, but it's for weight loss, if we can like I noticed last night, I was out with my kids and my dad, and we're walking down a street and I kept body checking myself in windows because it has permeated my brain where I'm like, okay, I am carrying extra weight. Yeah, I've had 3 kids or 3 pregnancies, 2 kids, 1 C-section. Of course, I'm going to have a pooch here. And so if I'm looking at it and every time I'm crossing a window and I'm critical of myself and of my body, then how much energy am I devoting toward that rather than what else is happening around us? And so I just find that this moment that we're in, society is pushing us toward distraction and toward focusing on the wrong thing. And when we try to overcorrect and steer in a different direction, then we're told that we're actually the distraction. Like
Mhm.
that's a thing that I'm not sure I understand that mental gymnastics. I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes any sense.
No,
Like
that
the
makes
idea that
perfect
what
sense.
this conversation that we're having right now is a distraction from other issues. Like that's a message I keep getting.
And that's crazy because what we're talking about is just, like, our own, like, we're allowed to have thoughts and opinions. And that what you're like, that what you're saying about women, like, this, like, we're shrinking. Somebody brought this up
Mm,
too, a couple years ago. Like, we're gonna see a new trend where women are shrinking again because eating disorders come down to a test of our
mm.
obedience, a test of our discipline.
Ooh.
And yeah, right. And I'm like, that is so fucking true. It comes down to, are you willing to, at the expense of your well being and your body, show that you are capable of discipline? And I feel
God
like,
damn.
and it's like, it all is like, you have to stay in line, is the message. Like, you have to look the part, you have to be the part, you have to act the part. You cannot take up space. Don't take up
Yeah.
space. And I think, like, unlearning that and being willing to be like, it's the same thing. I've had 2 babies. I have 2 kids under 2. I have a desk job. Of course, I'm like, "Ugh, I have a pooch and I have this and I have that." And also, I'm allowed to take up fucking space and my body has done
Right.
amazing things for me. Like, I can walk, I can carry my kids. I had kids. Like, okay, switching gears. Switching gears, 'cause I know we don't have a ton of time. I have another
Yeah.
needing to. But we want to talk about Nolan Wells
Mm,
and you as a mother of
yeah.
a white teenager. I
Yeah.
have two boys in general who are a fourth white, but doesn't matter. The way I want to raise my kids is that they would never leave somebody behind. And I think there are so many, on the vein of white supremacy and all of the ways it's showing up. I only heard about Nolan Wells the evening of the 5th, and he had been missing for well over 24 hours. I think the
Mhm.
reality is if this was a white person, it would have been viral after an hour of him not
Yeah,
being.
immediately.
I think the fact that for those of you who don't know, I'll just like go through this quick timeline. I traveled to Horn Island with a group of friends to celebrate Independence Day. The boat left from a private dock. These are his friends. This is him, if you can tell. Wells was last seen near the island around 3 p.m. He didn't return on the same boat as the group. From what we understand, he chose to stay there. First, I'm seeing the sheriff just take what these white boys said as, fact. I don't think that is usually something given to Black people. Actually, I know
Mm-mm.
it's not. Sunday at 1226 Coast Guard Sector Mobile said it received a request for assistance from JSCO in search of a missing person in the vicinity of Horn Island. The Coast Guard said an urgent marine information broadcast was issued. They issued a search thing, and not once did they say foul play is being considered. Not once did they acknowledge the reality of a Black teenager in Mississippi surrounded by white people. Mississippi is just where a 1-year-old baby was shot and killed
Yep.
through the passenger window. So, no, the car was not coming towards them. Even if it was, move your fucking body. Mississippi is where a lot of race, like, anyways, so yesterday morning, they ended up finding the body and all of the boys. First, we started to see photos were photoshopped. So, like, the beers were removed from their hands,
Yeah.
and then all of their things went private. And I'm like, just watching it, it's like, how are people not immediately all alarms going off? Something happened to this child, to this 18-year-old child. And how can we raise kids who are fucking better than this? Like, there is a
Yeah.
duty for parents to raise kids who would never leave somebody behind. But I want to know what you kind of
Yeah.
think. And then there's also another similar case that I want to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a conversation that I would like to have. I feel like I am constantly, if anybody overhears the way that I'm parenting, it's a constant kind of redirect and like, hey, think about that thing that you said and this thing that you're asking for and this expectation that you have. We need to like, I'm not just going to shut it down and try to get you to stop talking about this thing, stop asking this question, stop behaving in this way just for the sake of stopping. I want you to really think about it and understand the implications of it. I haven't yet had that conversation with my 14-year-old, but if there are Black parents who are having conversations with their 14-year-olds saying, "Hey, you need to understand that these are the risks when you are the only Black person in a group of white privileged kids." I'm assuming they're privileged because they're on a boat.
Or even just for their
And
skin, they are
yeah,
privileged.
like I was thinking financial privilege, but but the white privilege is clearly there. If there are parents who have to have these conversations, they have to have the conversations around safety when pulled over by police. They have to have a different type of conversation and interaction with their sons in particular. And why shouldn't I also need to have those conversations as a white parent so that I can make sure that my kids become part of the solution and not continuing the problem? And that feels like something that I'm constantly trying to figure out and trying to make sure that even if I don't get it right, because I'm not going to get it right the first time, that I continue having the conversation and continue working through that process with my kids, because the repair and the understanding and going through it is, even though it's painful and uncomfortable, it's necessary. We have to, we as white parents have to have these conversations with our children, because our children are the ones who are causing so much harm ultimately. Like, maybe not our children specifically, because we never want to assume that it would be our child, But as white folks, it's our kids. Like and then those kids are growing up to become adults who cause harm in that are unthinkable, but then also cause harm when they decide to run for office, when they use all of the different political levers that they have to gain an advantage. So it's up to us as parents, I think, to really shift the way that we parent our kids because it's it's not going to get better if we ignore it and we pretend it's fine. In the same way that I was living in this fog of pretending things were fine and people pleasing my way through it, nothing got better.
Mhm. Nobody wants to believe that their child is capable of horrible things. And it is just as horrible if they don't have a strong enough sense of morality that they're like, maybe I need to just look the other way because this is the in group.
Mm,
This is the group that I am a part of. And I don't want that my friends to get in trouble. Like,
yeah.
just the responsibility of having like a strong sense of what is right or wrong, no matter what the cost. We are up against a culture that wants our sons to be violent and that primes them to become soldiers, whether that is soldiers on the internet and like soldiers in the school, but like
Mm,
working for the patriarchy and for white supremacy, even though my kids are only a fourth white, like anybody can contribute to white supremacy no matter the color of their skin. We have to confront white supremacy in all forms all the time. And the burden, it's like, unfortunately, because our parents didn't take the responsibility to change
mhm.
course, we're continuing to put the burden on our children, and it's gonna keep now, like, do we wanna leave the burden for them to unlearn for their kids, or are we gonna handle the burden ourselves? Like, we're
Right.
just keep pushing it off, and the issue is gonna keep getting worse, because it's generations at this point.
I think that for people who follow me, maybe for more of my touch on processing trauma, generational trauma, and being a cycle breaker, this is something that I would hope would resonate because it's the same concept. You've got generational trauma that we are trying to unpack and make sure that we don't pass down to our kids, but also part of it is white supremacy is generational and it gets passed down. And it's a thing that we have to continue to work at within ourselves and also as parents and teach our children that it is a constant thing. I would rather my kids spend energy and myself spend energy on checking whether or not they are being quietly motivated by the patriarchy and white supremacy rather than checking to see if they have a pooch in a window as they walk along a sidewalk. Like
Mhm.
if we I just think that we need to shift the way that we are parenting at large. So it's a constant process, and which is a lot of why I love learning out loud with you, and then we also learn in private. I feel like our discourse is constantly, helping each of us evolve as women in politics, in women in as women in the world, and as parents.
Yes, yes, and I think, like, these kinds of friendships are, invaluable, because it's like you need to be able to learn out loud and think like, there are so many things we just don't know, and being like, "These are
Yeah.
the things we don't know and we want to figure out, and we wanna keep an open conversation about." I also before while we're, like, on this topic, I wanna pull up this video because his story at first reminded me of this kid. This happened a long time
Mm.
ago, and I want to bring attention back to it because I don't know if there has been any justice, but
Shocked at Metro Atlanta when we first told you about it. A Cobb High School field trip took a turn for the worse when a teenager actually died. A lawsuit over the incident was first thrown out of court, but this week, a judge allowed that case to move forward.
In a CBS 46 exclusive, our Boette Yates has a one-on-one sit-down with the victim's mom and her attorney. And we do want to warn you that some of the video in this story is going to be tough to watch.
That first call was he's missing. Now you're telling me that you located his body? So it was just utter disbelief. Adele Forbes vividly remembers the horrific day in February 2016 when she got the news of her son Tamori Jackson's death. But once I saw the video, I did not know what happened. Tamori was on Cobb High School's annual trip to Belize. The students had just landed, and prior to going to the hotel, they stopped at the Siberi River. Tamori was equipped with a GoPro, which captured everything, including his drowning.
You can just tell that Tamari is having difficulty swimming, and you can hear him yell for help 3 times. You can hear him reaching out, and the kids basically ignored him, but you can also see what the chaperones are not doing.
A wrongful death lawsuit was filed against Cobb County, the school district, the chaperones, and Monkey Bay Wildlife Sanctuary, where the trip was being held. The case against the county, the school district, and some of the chaperones were dismissed because they have immunity. The trial court dismissed the claims against the remaining defendants, finding they filed too late. But because of a recent appellate court decision reversing the trial court's ruling, some of the people involved could be held accountable.
So when we took the position, this was a Georgia field trip from a Georgia school, Georgia children, Georgia chaperones, Georgia death. And we felt that the state of Georgia had an interest in what happened to its citizens when they're traveling abroad.
And in the strange twist of events, the GoPro video that is now a key piece of evidence was originally missing.
But unfortunately, when his body was found, which is probably about 6 or 7 hours after he drowned, when his body was found in the Cyburn River and turned over to the authorities, there was no GoPro. And that, of course, raised our eyebrow because the GoPro was on his body, but it was missing. So about a year later, miraculously, we get a courier from the embassy and from the State Department where the GoPro had been found.
And now, with that key piece of evidence on her side, Adele is hopeful the lawsuit will bring closure, but she knows it will never undo what happened.
I'm constantly reminded of, okay, well, what was Tamari been doing? His task graduated in May, and that was really hard for me because that was a milestone that he missed.
No word. The trial will go back to court.
As far as I know, I don't think anyone was ever charged, but when he was missing, it reminded me of this story. Like, how many times it's like, even like, sure, nobody actually held him underwater. They might as well have. Why are we not looking out for Black people? Why are we not telling our kids, like, to look out for the people who are most at risk? Why was he invisible? Why did it take it what like, they did not even notice that he was missing until like, hours later. How? And, like, it's the same it's it does sound like the case for Nolan. I don't know why they have not said that there was foul play, because there's no way. But it's like, why are we raising kids who don't care about
Mhm.
anyone but like, it's so tragic. Like, the GoPro of him reaching out for help and his mother having to see nobody turning around to take care of her baby, him dying alone, watching all these people around him. We have a huge like, we have to do it. Like, we have to do so much better as parents.
Mhm.
Like, this is every parent's responsibility to make sure they have children who give a fucking shit about everybody around them. But yeah, I do wanna look more into this case to see how that's going, but, like, it's heartbreaking. Like, this is something that happens all the time. There are, like, so many lynchings that have been happening that get barely any
Mhm.
coverage. In Memphis, the National Guard just shot and killed a Black man. The
Yeah.
National Guard, why are we not why are we not in the streets? Memphis has been under federal occupation since September. But there's so much, like, there's so much work that has to be done, and, like, parents have the responsibility to do something.
Absolutely. I think that if you think about what needs to happen with a wound, like we have this infected, awful wound, and you have to cut out the margins around the wound itself before it can start to heal. And I feel like we're in that as a country, as parents. It's gonna hurt. And it is not pretty to have to cut around the margins and to get to the root cause of it. But if you don't, it's going to continue to eat away at the very fiber of our existence. And I think that that's what we're seeing. I hadn't seen that news piece. I don't remember it. And I mean, I don't have a poker face.
I know. No, I
I
mean, how can
I
it's
feel
so
sick.
gutting. It's so gutting. I think there's a Netflix documentary about it. I think that's how I know about it. I'll look and I'll
Mm,
put it on my Instagram if that's the case. But I
yeah.
just hope that, like, any other parents who are out there, like, what can we do? you can
Yeah.
start to just raise better kids. If you can't be out on the streets, if you can't donate, if you can't,
Mm.
like at the very least, do your best to raise kids, even when it's uncomfortable, raise them
Yeah.
to be better. Like that's, yeah.
Well, and if we're talking to the white women in the room, think about the way that you would want to raise sons so that they are not bystanders when a woman is being raped,
Mm,
when there is a sexual assault taking place. You don't want the guys who are just going to turn and look away. Like, you don't want to raise those children. It's the same thing. And just because it feels further away because it's based in white supremacy and not patriarchy, like those are the same sides of or different sides of the same coin. And we have to approach it with even more intention, I believe. Yeah, it's not a fun time to be a parent, but also I feel like such a sense of gratitude for the ability to be able to parent with the village that we choose and the people who help us. I think it's important to have a really strong village around you because it's not just you as the parent. It's the other people who help, like you help influence my parenting, and my other friends, like they influence the type of mother that I am. But then also the people who, my friend who picks up my child every morning and takes him to school and drops off her daughter who stays with me, and then I take her daughter to school. Like, it's those relationships. I just think that we really need to lean into that village building because we've been conditioned to not need the village and not need community. And I think that that's a lot of the work that you and I are doing, is to try to change that.
yeah. And that's how, I mean, where did the male loneliness epidemic come from? Lots of reasons.
Right.
But one of them is like we also don't model relationship building for our kids
Mhm.
and needing other people and relying on other people and not having all the answers and making mistakes in public. So I appreciate you so much. I appreciate your voice. I love you. And I am
I
so glad
love
we got to do
you.
this morning. But yes, you all
Same.
can follow Lauren Lehman Carter. It's under her name in the thing. And we'll have to talk soon.
Yes, please. I'll be
Okay.
back in Chicago tomorrow.
Okay. We'll hang this
All
week.
right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.